Thank you for tuning in with us every Thursday at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. About our host, Carlotta Taylor is not just a survivor of child abuse, but has grown into what we come to know as our personal thriver against all odds, who no longer flinches at adversity, but overcomes with authority. Carlotta decided to find the courage to say yes to herself. Miss Taylor has piece by piece faced her biggest adversary, the brokenness, and healed not only herself, but has also affected thousands through her outreach and influence. Carlotta Taylor is the author of the best-selling book, No More Flinching. Getting to the heart of the matter has always been what Carlotta is about. To keep in touch, text Carlotta to 888-111. It's time for the show to begin. It wouldn't be the same without you, because this is the place people bond worldwide, sharing powerful stories, prevailing over adversity. The heart of the matter is the people's joy. Now, turn your attention to our host, Carlotta Taylor, as the show begins.
Well, hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Heart of the Matter. Let me know, give me some thumbs up or some love if you can see and hear me clearly. We've been having some crazy weather in the state of Mississippi and kind of like across the nation for the most part. But today we have someone who's going to be sharing an amazing story. And when I say a story, I'm talking about levels of stories. I'm talking about overcoming drug addiction, overcoming facing a felony sentence, overcoming accidentally killing someone in an automobile accident. So we're talking about some real serious things. Thank you so much, Shanella Chrysler, for letting me know that you are here and you can see me. And please let me know wherever you are tuning in from, because I would love to know whether you are tuning in by way of Facebook, YouTube, or any other platform. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to share. Joining us today is Mistie Layne. And let's go ahead and put some hearts on the screen and welcome her to the stage. Hello, Mistie. Can you hear me, Mistie?
Hi, Carlotta. Thanks for having me. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Great. Yes, ma'am. Let's go ahead and get this show on the road. I understand you have a lot going on right now and life can be pretty tough, but I thank you for sticking to your commitment of being here. Tell us, what does getting to the heart of the matter mean to you?
It just means getting raw and real, getting honest, not with someone else, but even with yourself. Just getting down to the root of what you're feeling and why.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Just very transparent answer. And now, if you would, Mistie, and she's not feeling where you are, and y'all just give her some love right now, because even with her not feeling well at all, I'm like, you want to counsel? Do you want to? She's like, no, let's go. That's Mistie for you. You said no, let's go, Mistie. Yeah. If you would, because childhood development is so important. It's a direct connection to adulthood. So if you would, you can finish your comments and then walk us down that memory lane of Mistie Layne growing up as a young lady.
I will. The only thing I'm going to ask you, as my friend Carlotta, as a fellow woman, is if I get sick and start throwing up, please take me off the screen.
I got you.
I am not feeling well.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, I'm counting on you. Okay. So, a child for Mistie Layne, I grew up in what I think was the most carefree, great environment. I thought I had the perfect childhood. It wasn't until later in life when I started researching and journaling and figuring out all the problems I was having that it went back to some time in my childhood. But, starting out, I was always that competitive kid, always had that edge in me that wanted to win at everything. I started out in baton twirling when I was 4 because I was so hyper. My mom had to find something to put me in because I would be walking across the top of the swing set like walking on the top, and I was giving my mom a heart attack every time she'd look out the back door. So the doctor said she's hyper. And twirling pecans was the only thing at 4 you could join. You couldn't join dance until you were 5. So I started twirling. I was entered into beauty pageants. And I'll never forget, and I talk about this in my book. The book is called What Goes Up. I'll never forget the very first beauty pageant I won was called the Miss Tiny Tot Review. And when they put that crown on my head and my little yellow and white polka dotted dress and my black patent leather shoes, I'll never forget that feeling at 4 of power that I felt. I learned instantly what winning could do for me. And so that kind of propelled Misty from 4 through the rest of my life to always be competitive. I was pretty naive. I grew up in a country town, pretty protected. I was sheltered from the ugly in the world. So I didn't know much about it till I started learning from my own experiences after being married to an alcoholic, after getting into a domestic abuse situation, after falling victim to cocaine. I just didn't know about those things before that. I was kind of a judgy person. I don't think it was intentional. It was just I was naive. So one of my big things today is I try to educate people and bring awareness through transparent storytelling so that we can judge less and mentor more in the world.
Yes, I love it. You talk about being the age of 4, realizing that you love that feeling of being crowned, and it really did something to you, so much so that you remember how it felt at the age of 4 to have a crown on your head. And growing up in a loving, caring family, you didn't have a care in the world. I think that's amazing. That's amazing. But as life would unfold for you in the next upcoming years, all right, I understand that you found yourself behind a vehicle and in a tragic accident. And I just want to say power to you for even sharing that story, because it's a tough one to share. And it's really, really tough.
It took a long time.
I appreciate you going there today. Walk us through that experience and through the lows of that. And I know it's a very incredible overcoming story, but take us back to that day.
Do you want me just to jump to that day, or do you want any backstory leading up, or just jump right into that day?
Backstory leading up, I prefer, because this is the heart of the matter, and I like us to get to the heart of the matter.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to, let me just kind of walk you how I got to that day, because that's just as equally as important as the day itself. So I knew early on I wanted to be a surgeon, so I started working that plan to be a surgeon. I fell in love with one of my college sweethearts. We got married, started having kids pretty young. I was 21 when I had my first child, Lauren, my daughter, and didn't know that after we, 25 hit, we were getting older, he's still drinking, like we were still at fraternity parties or something, and I didn't notice it up until then because we were in the college life. But then as you start maturing and growing in society and you have responsibilities and you're having kids, the drinking wasn't going away. And so I realized I was married to an alcoholic, and he wasn't physically abusive, but he was verbally abusive and emotionally abusive. He would give me the silent treatment for days, and that was his way of controlling me. And that plays on someone. It makes you insecure. It makes you feel less than. It's tough. It's tough to deal with that. So little by little, I was allowing him and his problems to chip away at my own self-esteem. And I didn't realize it at the time. But I found out one morning, long story short, that he was cheating on me. He had someone pregnant while I was pregnant at the same time with Amber. And she ended up losing the baby, but I found out about the whole cheating thing, and it just completely devastated me. I was, like I said, I was naive to the ugly in the world. Would have never guessed it in a million years. I can spot them now. I can spot a cheater from a mile away now because I'm educated on it now. But but back then, I didn't have an idea. So it blindsided me, and I went into a deep depression. It was right after I'd gotten accepted into medical school, worked my butt off in 12 years to get accepted and get my undergrad degrees. And it put me in such a deep depression, Carlotta, that I actually had to take a deferment and take a year off to figure out what was going on in my life. He ran off with another woman, left me with 2 small babies, cleaned out our bank account. I'm trying to go to school. It was a rough time. It was a low. And Mistie, was feeling as a person very vulnerable. I was feeling very, I had no confidence. He stripped, Miss Texas teen runner up in the 80s. I walked across the stage full of confidence. And now, I was starving for anybody to validate that I was pretty, that I was smart, that there wasn't something wrong with me. Because when he cheated, I assumed it must have been my fault. I wasn't good enough, or he would have had to cheat, right? Which I learned now that's ridiculous. But that's the state of mind I was in. So I became very vulnerable. I got involved with the first man that gave me that attention I needed. He wasn't the greatest of guys. He ended up introducing me to my first line of cocaine at 32 years old, a mother of 2. Would have known better. I was never into drugs before. But I just felt like in my life I had done everything right, and it got me to this dark place. So there's a part of me in the back of my mind when he gave me that first line and said, "Here, try it." I didn't stop and respect that moment of choice. I didn't think it through. I was just angry. I was hurt. And I thought, you know what? I want to be bad, because being good didn't do crap for me. So I wanted to be bad. So I did that line of cocaine. And it took me to a place where adultery didn't matter. Perfectionism didn't matter. None of that mattered anymore. And I got addicted to that feeling. That progressed into a crack cocaine addiction. And the first hit of crack cocaine I took, it was an instant, and I'm not kidding you, it was an instant physical addiction at that point, instantly. And there was no going back at that point. It very quickly, within a year, progressed from smoking crack on the weekends to going to every night, locking myself in the room, locking myself in the bathroom, staying up 3 days in a row. It got to the point where I was going to work because I'd already had my nuclear medicine degree. So I was able to work even though I had taken a deferment from med school. It got to the point, Carlotta, where had been up for 3 days in a row and I couldn't hold my eyes open to start an IV on a patient. So I'd go in the bathroom and lay down on the nasty bathroom floor and set my alarm and try to sleep for 15 minutes. And an hour later, people would be banging on the door trying to see if I was okay in there. I mean, it got bad. It stole my life from me, and I allowed it to. And I'll be transparent about it today. I couldn't have talked about this 12 years ago because I was ashamed of that person laying on that bathroom floor. I was ashamed to admit that I had let the drug take over my life. But today I understand the value of sharing your voice and your story and your experience. And I've learned that it's not about me anymore. I've survived it. I'm through it. So I don't have to let it be about me now. Now it's about the person that needs to hear the truth of it, the heart of the matter of it, because sugarcoating it doesn't help anybody. And I've lived through everything I've lived. I believe in my heart is to give back and help. So that's what I'm here to do. So that's why I share so openly, as you said, so transparently about the real of it, about remembering I said I would never prostitute, and remembering the day it happened, where it happened, the smell of the environment I was in. I remember so plainly the day I traded sexual favors for my first hit of crack cocaine. I'll never forget that day. And the day my daddy dropped his knees and told me that day would come, and I told him it wouldn't, and it did. I don't mind sharing about the abortions that I had, 3 of them, behind crack cocaine, and how one of the times I was too high to even make the appointment and had to keep making it over and over because I couldn't stop smoking crack long enough to go have this abortion. Like I said, it took a long time, but I share today because I want people to know if you think you're having fun at a party and you think you want to get high, I want you to walk away from this show knowing what the heck you're signing up for. It's not a joke. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, how educated you are, what your parents do for a living, who they know. If you let that door, if you leave that door open for addiction in your life, it will take you down. It doesn't discriminate. So please listen to me when I tell you, respect your moment of choice. Respect it. Think it through. Um, those dark days, Carlotta, took me down so many roads of putting my life in danger. I just criminal activity, um, stealing from my own parents, all the things I said I would never do. Here I am, this really good kid studying to be a surgeon, is doing all these horrible things, you know? Anyway, so how I got to September 18th, 2007 was I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was the middle of a drug deal. These two girls, these two prostitutes that I had picked up to score drugs for me in a town that I was unfamiliar with, decided I was an easy target and they were going to steal my car. So they had it all planned out. I didn't realize, I was too high to realize what was going down. I was green, as they call it on the streets. I was naive, even in the drug world. And they came, one of the girls was in the front seat with me. The other one came to the window and showed me the drugs and punched me in the face, knocked my glasses off. The girl grabbed everything she could out of my car and jumped out. And I see Z, they call him, which was their pimp, running across a field. And I knew at that point my life was in danger. Turned my car around and go out the only way I knew into that area where I was in town. And as I sped past, one of the girls threw a brick at my car. And out of reflex, I jerked. And when I jerked, my car started sliding sideways down the road. It ran and slammed into a parked vehicle in a driveway. Well, on the other side of that parked vehicle was a lady standing there smoking a cigarette. And her own car that was parked in the driveway hit her and knocked her into the house, and it killed her. I came to. I tried to start my car and drive off, thinking I'm in danger. I had no idea what had just happened. A lady came running up to my window. She said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I got to go. I got to get home to my son. She said, "Honey, you're not leaving. You're not going anywhere." And I said, "I'm okay." And she said, "Your car." And she said, "Don't you know?" And I passed out. The next thing I know is I woke up with my mom hovering over me when I was in the ER with just tears pouring. And I went to reach up to hug my mama's neck to tell her I was okay, because I remembered I was in a wreck, but I also knew my body was okay. And when I went to hug her, I felt that cold, angry steel around my wrist. And I knew right then something bad had happened.
Whoa.
And my mama said, "Don't you know?" She said, "Don't you know?" And I said, "No, what?" And then out of the shadow of the corner of my eye, I saw a detective walk up and he said, "You can tell her." And my own mama had to tell me that I killed somebody. And I felt all the air being squeezed out of my lungs as if that gurney I was laying on was quicksand. I, and you have to remember, I'd been up for 4 days. I was full of cocaine. Everything was just crazy at this time. I was in and out of consciousness, but I knew right then and there, this isn't something you're going to do 2, 3 weeks and come home from. This is serious. Um, I tell people all the time, I've never been suicidal, but it was really hard for me to find the will every day to take that breath when I woke up in the morning. Um, it was hard to find the courage to face the people I had to face in my life. It was the hardest for me to find the courage to face myself in the mirror every day, knowing that I took somebody's life because I was being stupid out there doing something so silly and stupid and idiotic. And it's hard when you're the one left behind and you're the one in the wrong. It's hard to be that survivor when you've caused it. So here I find myself in jail. I wake up to a 40-year possible prison sentence for vehicular homicide. My life is over. I don't think I'm ever going to see my kids again. And I go into yet another really deep depression. One of the positive things that came from this is that it physically separated me away from my abuser long enough to where I can emotionally detach from him And that probably saved me just as much as being able to break that domestic abuse cycle with him as well. So I'm thankful for that. And I learned to recognize the blessings in it, because I think every cloud has a silver lining. And I think if we don't find ours, we'll beat ourselves up with shame and guilt until it kills us. So, yeah, that's how I got to that day.
Wow. You just really laid it out just in the most storytelling way. I felt everything. My eyes are tearing up. I had to start batting just to try not to mess up my makeup, but it's very chilling. And when you shared how you went to reach up to hug your mom and you felt the handcuffs,
Yeah.
and you had no idea that this had happened.
Yeah.
It's like my heart goes out to the deceased, but my
No
heart
idea.
goes out to you too, Misty, just to be in that situation, in that predicament. You didn't ask for it. It was just a sequence of events that went wrong, horribly wrong, and an accident, a true accident, and wow, you wake up to a nightmare.
I, I certainly didn't start that day saying, "Hey, let me go kill somebody today." We never know
Exactly.
what's around that corner. We never know.
Right. But I also
And
understand.
it's probably very different. It's probably very different for you because you're on the other side of that law enforcement, on the flip side of that. See,
Yeah.
and so as someone that's been on that side of it, you have your duty and your job and your obligation to put me away, the bad guy.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I had a district attorney that saw the good in me, Carlotta. And when I had written my book, I actually used writing as what saved me in jail. And
Mm.
I wrote my story by hand on commissary order paper and pens. Um, he got word of it that I had written my life story, and he came to visit me, my prosecutor, which is unheard of. And
Wow.
he looked through some of the pages and he got to know me. And he said, "I'm going to help you. You don't belong here." And I said, "I do belong here. I've killed somebody." He said, "But Misty, this isn't your life. This was an accident." He said, "I'm going to help you." And he went to the judge and he went to the family, and they were able to turn my vehicular homicide charge from a 40-year sentence to a negligent homicide, an accidental
Mm.
homicide charge for 5 years. And if you don't think that was a blessing, oh my goodness, I owe him everything for that, for believing and seeing something in me.
Wow, Misty. And as the story unfolds, I'm remembering the first time you were on the Heart of the Matter show when I first kicked it off. And there's so much
Yeah.
growth in your story since the first time you shared it. And I'm catching all different types of angles. And even though I come from a law enforcement background, initially, a few years ago, yeah, I would have been like, lock her up. But throughout my growth process,
Yeah.
I am also able to see your side of the story. And I'm in a firm
Yeah.
agreement um, with that attorney that looked out for you. That was nothing but God. And as I
Yeah.
know, the story gets even
It was.
sweeter because that's not all of it. You also wound up being in a cell and getting to know a person. Take us through that. Take us through this key
Yeah.
person that you came in contact with. If your story couldn't get any more miraculous.
Well, like I said earlier, God didn't bring me through all of this to sit on it. And I realized that. That's why I decided to become transparent and use my voice to speak out. God orchestrated so many events that I call beautiful twists to my story. There's two big beautiful twists. One being the two girls that attacked me ended up in the well, there's three, actually, three beautiful twists. The two girls that attacked me had prostitution warrants. They ended up in the same jail as me. They didn't segregate us. That was extremely hard for me. It was a small little parish jail in Louisiana. Um, One of the girls, I ended up getting her into the Bible. She was a product of, at 12, her mom was prostituting her out for her own crack addiction. So she was surviving the way she knew how. She came to me. She was extremely remorseful. She wanted to talk with the judge and tell him she punched me. It was her fault. I ended up helping her get her GED. I brought her into the Bible. She would do really good for a while, and then she'd end up back in jail, and I'd see her again. I was kind of like a motherly figure to her, a young, beautiful girl. She since has overdosed and died on heroin, and it broke my heart to hear it. But the fact that the two of us could come together with God, that trifecta there, with God in the middle, and form a relationship. People didn't understand it. People couldn't wrap their brains around how I would have anything to do with her after what she did to me. But it's about forgiveness. You have to forgive others if you're seeking forgiveness, you have to forgive others. So that was one. Two was the middle of the night, my jail cell opened up because I had an empty bed in my cell because God made sure I did that night. And the lady came in and she was crying. She was drunk. She kept going on and on about her wife that was dead, had died. She had cancer. She was in a lot of pain, and she had been suicidal and tried to kill herself because of the pain from the cancer, but had done it unsuccessfully. But she kept crying about how she was dead now, and she really missed her. But at the same time, she was happy she was gone because she wasn't in pain. I had no idea who she was. She didn't know who I was. She was drunk anyway. She wouldn't have known. But the next morning, when the bars opened up, and I stayed up with her. I gave her a T-shirt to wear. I gave her some of my commissary food, and we sat and talked for a couple hours. I just listened to her, and then we went to bed. The doors opened up. We went to breakfast with all the other cells, and everybody's pointing and whispering and shoo-shooing. And we look at each other like, okay, are we supposed to fight? Who are you? And somebody hollered out to her, "That's the bitch that killed your wife." And she looked at me. She said, "But you're a nice lady." And I looked at her and I said, "She had cancer. She tried to kill herself." So what I believe God did for us, for both of us, is number one, when she died, the word on the street was that I ran her down over a bad drug deal because those girls didn't want the blame. So they put this story out there. So all her spouse is hearing is that I ran her wife down in a drug deal. So she's got all these unanswered questions going on in her head. So what I did for her was I gave her closure. She knows now that her wife had nothing to do with the drug deal, that it was a complete accident out there. Number two, like I told you earlier, I had a hard time finding my first breath every day to continue on living from day to day. She gave me the silver lining. She gave me the one tiny sliver of hope, of piece of thread that I could build on, that there was something in all the grimness. There was that one positive sliver that she had cancer, she was suicidal, and I took her life, and she was no longer in pain. It might not be a lot to some, but to me, it's what I needed. I needed something positive, and it's what it gave me. And I believe in my heart God set that up. I do. I believe God set that up because she should have never even been allowed in there with me. I was getting death threats from her family all the time in there. I was scared to ball up in a ball as far away from my bars because I was told I was going to get a hot shot in my arm, which is a shot of heroin that'll kill you in your sleep, and petrified every day. For 7 months straight in there.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Champion, last one standing, you a champion. Anybody winning, you a champion. Everybody winning, you a champion. 24/7, nothing in between. All of this golden and turn me a king. To be the greatest, you gotta compete. Hot like the sun, I'm bringing the heat. One verse when it can't stop. I was made to win, it was made as a copy. It's obvious, I bodied this. So if we top 10, I'ma top the list. Gotta do it for your team, put the city on the map. Never argue back, tell them look at the stats. No matter where you at, leave it all on the track. Cause winners gon' win and the losers gon' chat. Yeah, you can tell by my step on on the field, I'm a champion.
I'm Marshall Thompson, the Unknown Warrior, WKA MMA National Champion. If you want to be the best, come train with the best.
Wow. We are here getting to the heart of the matter with Mistie Layne. She is sharing her traumatic experience of overcoming a drug addiction, but more importantly, how she accidentally took a life in a vehicular accident. And the story unfolds. She's sharing with how she gained closure, how she was actually in a jail cell with the person's wife who had just passed in that accident. And the story is just unfolding with a mystery of God's touch in the middle of it. Thank you so much for sharing. This is very, very, I don't even have the words to really say how dynamic your story is. Wow. Wow, Mistie. So once you all had that aha moment, like it was a lot of closure for you. You were just stating that was closure to know that the deceased, she was a cancer patient, had attempted suicide. She just really wanted to check out, and it was just closure for the both of you. And her wife was able to see that she wasn't a part of a drug transaction, and it was an accident. What did that do for you at that moment after God cleared that up?
It allowed me to start, it took down the wall of shame for me enough to where I could start looking inward at myself and saying, okay, so you are going to live through this. You have found the will now and the courage to live through this. Now let's fix why you were doing the drugs to begin with. So it allowed me to start looking at that void that I felt and why it was there. And the way I started, my oldest daughter, I had just missed her high school graduation because I was in jail. And she wrote me a letter and she said, Mama, you have to forgive yourself. This was an accident. She said, write down everything that keeps you up at night, that's haunting you, all those things you're beating yourself up. Write them down, pray on them, and get rid of it. So I did it. And it started this spark in me. It showed me how writing could be very beneficial. It was very releasing. So I sat down, I ordered a pad and pens, and I started writing my story by hand. It took me 7 long months and a lot of commissary paper and pens. And it got to the point people were buying pens and paper for me and donating to me because I was inspiring them to write, and they were contributing. I mean, it's just been an incredible journey along. There's been lessons at each step of this journey everywhere. If I open my eyes to it, I can see the lessons. If you live life with blinders on, you're never going to see the blessings around it or the stories or the lessons. But if you open your eyes to it and you're aware, they're all around us, all of us, every day. So I started writing. When I got my sentence reduced to 5 years, I finally got sentenced to prison. I went away for 2.5 years. I finally went home, did the rest of my time on paper, and didn't do anything with my book. It was at that point, I wouldn't even call it a book. I would call it emotional vomit because it was just me getting a lot of anger out, a lot of blaming, a lot of hatred, a lot of shame, guilt. It was a dark, dark, dark story. But it didn't matter because I hadn't planned to do anything with it. I was too ashamed. I got back into the nuclear medicine. I never went back to med school, but by going from vehicular homicide to negligent homicide, it went to a nonviolent crime, and that saved my medical license in nuclear medicine. It's been the biggest blessing all the way around. So I still had a career that I could get into. I had to build up my reputation and my name again because nobody would hire me. I mean, this is the chick that was sleeping in the bathroom on the floor, that fell asleep starting IVs, and the patient was waking me up. Ma'am, are you okay? And I have a needle in my hand, lying to him, telling him I had narcolepsy or whatever. Nobody was going to hire me. So it took a long time, a lot of perseverance, a lot of trying to get through the background checks to find a place that would hire me to get back into my work field. So when I did do that, the last thing I wanted to do was release this book and tell everybody what a crack whore I was, literally. So I didn't do anything with it. It wasn't for 9 years that and 9 years later, that my oldest daughter, Lauren, again came to me and said she was pregnant with my first grandbaby, and she was due on September 18th, which coincidentally was the same exact day that the wreck happened, September 18th, which is also coincidentally the same exact day I married my two daughters' dad, September 18th. So that's a big day for me. And I'm thinking in my head, God is so good. He's replacing a life with the life I took that day. He's taken two bad September 18th and given me a childbirth instead to look up to now. And I can celebrate that day instead of going into depression every day on September 18th. And lo and behold, my grandbaby Eliana, she gets stuck in the birth canal. She was actually coming out on her due date, suffered a severe brain injury, came out almost completely brain dead. She died twice that day. She was left blind and deaf. She couldn't suck or cry. She couldn't even hold her body temperature because her hypothalamus was shot. This is a baby that Eliana pushed harder to live life than anybody I've ever met in my life. That child was a fighter. She was a fighter, and she wanted to live, and she didn't even know what life was. She couldn't see, she couldn't hear, but she fought every day to live. And I recognized when we finally were able to hold her, I held her and I just couldn't connect with her because I was eaten up with guilt. I was convinced, the devil convinced me that this was my fault. This was my punishment. There's absolutely no way that this baby was born on September 18th by coincidence. This was my punishment. So I couldn't connect. I was letting everything in my past rob me of everything to come in my future over the shame and guilt. And that is when I stood up and I said, you know what, Mistie? Number one, God doesn't love like that. Number two, you have to forgive yourself because God has forgiven you. And I took that book and I rewrote it. I took it from a dark, angry, blameful book and I made it a book about accountability and forgiveness. And it changed my entire life. And I'm hoping it's inspiring others to change theirs too. And from that day forward, I made a vow to God. I made a vow to the lady I killed, which is what the tattoo's about, is that every day of my life from this day forward is going to be about being transparent and giving back so that I can help ease somebody else's suffering out there. And that's where I'm at.
Wow, Mistie, you are truly an inspiration. Let's take one quick break. Let's just revert our eyes to a powerful video. It's all about Mistie right now. This is Carlotta. I'm getting to the heart of the matter with the one and only Mistie Layne. Wow, what an incredible story. Let's take our attention to this video right quick. Wow, that was my favorite at the end with the blooming flower. I just love that. What an incredible video. It just ties all the
I
pieces
have to tell
together.
you,
I'm
I
listening.
have to tell you the symbolism behind that. I have to tell you the symbolism behind the pink flower. When I was in third grade, I told my brother I wanted to change my name to Pink Flower Jingo. And he said, "You can't change your name." And I said, "Yes, I can. I want to be Pink Flower." And from that day forward, my brother, I mean, even today, Christmas cards are addressed to Pink Flower. When he would send me stuff in jail, it would say AKA Pink Flower. He's got my kids calling me Pink Flower. So I had to have that in there.
Mm, I love it. I love, I
Buddy.
do a talk. Yeah, I do a talk on seed bud bloom, and I just love to see flowers bloom to their full potential, just like people blooming to their full potential. So that just,
Yeah.
man, refreshing video right there. So it wasn't all gloom. It was a gloomy story, and what couldn't happen and what couldn't go wrong did go wrong. Like, but then there were some miracle moments, and God just really shined His light over your life. And now look at you today. You know, so how did you wrote the book? You rewrote the book with a different heart, and what made you want to get it out and like just really be the person you are today, sharing your story, taking the stage, speaking about it, and just you're pretty much warning people. You're like, hey, listen, you don't have to go through it. Listen to my story and take heed. What makes you do what you're doing now?
That's right. Because I realized, like I said, when I saw that my past was robbing my future, I knew then God saved me for a reason, and it wasn't to stay silent. So that's when I decided to step up and speak out, and I felt it was an obligation that I had, and that's why I do it. I do it because I believe that people need to hear the truth. They need to learn to respect their moments of choice because it becomes their lifetime of decisions all the way. And if enough of us get out there and share our stories, and too, Carlotta, it's about realizing that it's not about us anymore. The first time I shared my story out loud on stage was at the Habitude Warrior Conference. I entered a speaking competition, and Chris Salem and Don Fawcett were there, and Carlos Segura. I'll never forget it. And I ended up winning the competition. And when I got down off that stage, I was terrified because I was so worried about what the people in the audience were thinking about me. They're going to judge me because I killed somebody. They're going to judge me. Me, 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 me. And Don Fawcett grabbed me. He didn't know me. He grabbed me, pulled me to the side, and he said, "Let me tell you something. It ain't about you, sister. It ain't about you no more." He said, "It's about what they needed to hear. So you lift your chin up high and you stop worrying about you." And as soon as I did, and I got off that stage and people were running up and hugging me, and one lady said, "Thank you so much because my mom died during a crack addiction, and I never understood her side of it. I hated her. I never understood her struggle. But after hearing you speak, I get it now. And I can let her be at peace, and I can be at peace with her." And that right there was like, oh my God, I never saw. I thought sharing my story was about me, getting me out there, getting released for me. Your story and your experiences that you already come through and you've walked through as a success, they're not about you at all. It's about the next person that's going to have to go through it and what you do to help them.
Yes. Wow. How simply amazing. Misty, I can pretty much talk to you all night and just listen. Wow. So we have the book, What Goes Up. Oh my gosh. Talk to us about this book.
So this book is about, here it is, overcoming your worst to live your best. It's a full-on account, like I said, raw and real, no sugarcoating of my life. What I like that I find unique about my book is that at the end of each chapter, I give like a life application section where you can like apply what I'm talking about, and in the back, there's a chapter called Cope COPE equals hope. And it's a 4-step method that'll teach you and show you exactly how you can start that journey to release your toxic shame and guilt. It's a writing exercise and the steps that you have to take to do it. So I feel like it's got application in it as well. It became bestseller. I was really excited about it. I'm real proud of it because it did take a lot of courage to let all my secrets out there. It did take a lot of courage to call people out that I protected for years that hurt me. It takes bravery. And when I did it and was able to finally do it because God guided me to, now other people are doing it too. And that feels good too. It feels good to find another positive thing out of all of it.
Wow. That is just simply amazing. Anything else? What else do you have going on, Mistie? Because I know you're a very busy lady. Tell us some of the other things you're doing. You wrote the book. I know you speak. What else you have going
on? I have Right to Ignite Women's Empowerment Retreats that I would put a dead halt to, but it's going to gear up again this year. It's a very intimate setting. 20 women or less get to come. It's a very intimate setting where we just come together as women. We bond. We create trust. We do some ugly crying around a campfire, getting real with ourselves. We do writing exercises, art therapy, music therapy, a little bit of yoga, some hiking. It's a transformational weekend, learning and teaching others to use writing as a tool for self-forgiveness and for empowerment. So there's that. I'm vice president for Chemo Buddies for Life. That's another great story. God just, has orchestrated so many things for me. I met Tamara Hunter through the Next competition, which is where I met you as well. Ended up becoming vice president on the board for Chemo Buddies for Life, the founder of, and never in a million years. I do it because my job, I deal with oncology patients and do PET CT scans for them. So I'm close to it in my career, but not in my personal life. So I've served for her for 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years now, a year and a half as vice president, never knowing God was preparing me because this past December, my mom was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, very aggressive. Spent 11 days in the hospital with her. She's actually being admitted in the hospital today again, and never even knew I was on that walk for my own mama. Then I got diagnosed with a cancer on my nose recently, a month ago. Never knew I was on that journey for myself, but God did, and he was preparing me the whole time. So, like I said, take the blinders off. Start looking at the things. There's a saying my sister said to me when I was in jail. She said, everything is going wrong, just right. Wow. Remember, God's in control. And if you take those blinders off, Carlotta, and you look at all the crap in your life, and you remember that saying, you're going to see that there's a silver lining. There's a root to that weed somewhere, and it's going to bloom one day. It's going to pollinate something else. You have to just be open to it and recognize it and then nurture it when you see it instead of keeping that blinder on and walking right by it,
Yes.
Yeah.
Come on, powerhouse. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your transparency. Your story is incredible. You even covered and went a little deeper on this time ago around, and I really appreciate that. Stick and all, Mistie Layne showed up, even with your mother being en route to the hospital. As she was coming on, she still said, I want to move forward with the show.
Yeah.
Wow, Mistie. If you can, share with the audience.
Well, because it's not about me.
Yes, share with everyone where they can find your book and if they want to get an autographed copy or what other platforms your book is on so they can support you and hear your story even more.
Okay. So Mistie Layne, MISTIELAYNE.com is my website. If you get a signed copy of the book, you can get it there. If not, Amazon, Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, anywhere, they all carry it, so you could get it there as well. It would be great if you did get it to please leave me a review. I would really appreciate that. You can also find me every Tuesday and Thursday night right here on E360 TV because I have my own show, Dare to Share with Mistie Layne. I invite anyone out there that has a desire to share, that's daring to share it, to get in touch with me, and I'll get you as a guest on my show so we can share your adversity and educate others with your life experiences as well.
Wow. Well, I surely thank you so much, Misty. You hung in there. I didn't have to take you off the screen. So good job. But I hope you have.
I got it in my hand, girl.
I see. I've been hearing
Thank
that,
you, Carlotta. I just love and adore you.
Oh.
I love and adore you, and just you've had so much growth this year. I'm so proud of you. Just so proud of you. And you inspire me in so many ways as an entrepreneur to get off my behind and get things done. Sometimes procrastinate, and I think of you often, actually, and I think, well, heck, Carlotta's doing it. Girl, get out there and do it. So thank you for that.
That is amazing. See, that's what I want. When people hear my name, when they think of me, be encouraged. And so thank you so much. You really made my day, Misty. Thank you for sharing no matter what you had going on. Just committed to the cause, committed to adding value to people's lives. So thank you so much. It was amazing having you on the show today.
You're welcome.
Well, all right. Wow. If you did not catch the real play, then be sure to catch the replay. Amazing story where Mistie Layne shares how she overcame so much grief, so much horror, so much sadness, but God was in the midst of it all and revealed to her every step of the way, like, I got you and I had you even then, and everything happens for a reason. Nothing just happens. Be sure to share this live with at least 5 people that you want to inspire. Everybody has a story, but you never know what story you need to hear that's going to help you get to your next level in life. You never know what this story can do for somebody else. It can definitely warn somebody before they take their first hit, before they get in a car thinking they're good. You know how we do. I'm good. Drinking and driving, intoxicated, under the influence of something else. Listen to Mistie Layne's story. Share it with someone you love, because it just might save a life. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great evening.
Thank you for tuning in to The Heart of the Matter. If you would like to sponsor an episode or be a guest on the show, email theheartofthemattershow@gmail.com. We look forward to seeing you next Thursday for another amazing episode.